Champs, baby, it's Graph Champs, season, what is it, season 4, I'm bugging, season 4, episode 3, you heard? I'm your host, SR, the vertical, murdical, squirticle, all over your girl's Liz nips, you know what I'm saying? I left my kids on the eyelids. Yo, son, we got one of them dudes today, boy, some legendary shit going on. Salute, CV, I see you. Free my nigga Scant, I see you. You know, share the live. We got the wrist mob in the building today, you know what I mean? M.T.K. KET, boy. You heard? Put on my theme music, man. This shit is too special, you heard? This is a special one.
Diablo, SR the General.
Shit alive, baby, shit alive.
Grab, chant, yeah, grab, chant, grab, chant, yeah, grab, chant. Shout out the Graph Champs.
Salute,
Shout out
Scant.
the Graph Champs. Shout out the Graph Champs.
Come on, boy.
Shout out the Graph Champs. Welcome to the Graph Champs. We appreciate the love and support for all the Graph Camps. The most amazing and iconic artists out here smashing it from the train yards to the rooftops, to the storefronts, highways, catching wreck. SR the General. He be going crazy, bro, from his Instagram account, Supreme Clientele Radio. Interviewing all the icons, the ones that led the way. Salute to all the fallen legends, the ones that set the stage. Moment of silence, let us remember those. Whether they family or they were friend or foe. Hate them or love them, let's show them some respect. Major contribution in hip-hop, Graph Champs to the death. Ready and willing, never scared to fry. Never. Chance in the odds of getting up, prepared to rise. Super talented vandals, never scared to die. Let's show them love while they breathing.
Yeah, shit alive. Shit alive,
so
baby.
tell a friend to go and tell a friend. Interviews are dope, from the start up to the end. Let's show them love and call it glory time. Repost his post on your post, share his post up on your storyline. So tell a friend to go and tell a friend. Interviews are dope, from the start up to the end. Let's show him love and call it glory time. Repost his post on your post, share his post up on your storyline. That's all the God General, Graph Champs. Full blast music, the beat God.
Shit alive, baby, shit alive, shit alive.
Bosses, 4-5 the God.
Yo, I just want to say super shout out to everybody. Shit alive, bro. We got KET M.T.K in the building. One of them superhero wrist mob. You know what I'm saying? So spread the word, man. Shit alive. We need this audience to get live, even though I know it's mad deep on the replays, but live is where it's at. You know what I'm saying? Salute, I see you, Ches. Salute my nigga OD MBK, you heard? Fly by night. I want to salute my Straight 16 family. And you know what I'm saying? Look, I finally got the trophy for Graph Champs Platform of the Year on the Havoc Insta Awards. We did it, kid. Salute to my Straight 16 family, man. Salute, man. Salute to F Boom. You know what I'm saying? Salute to Poe, my nigga Bipolar. Salute to the whole Havoc Insta Awards. Salute to everybody that voted. You know what I'm saying? This shit means more than y'all know, man. We need your support. Y'all want me to keep Graph Champs going? And shit, we need that support. You know what I'm saying? I should have 1,000 niggas on the live right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm the only person giving you this content, man. Graffiti TV. You know what I'm saying? Salute to the 357 boys in the building. You heard? I just wanna say rest in peace to all the fallen soldiers. Shout out, like I said, shout out to my Straight 16 family, bro. We got mad shit going on. You know what I'm saying? The Straight 16, my nigga, you know, Straight 16 Graph Champs, we one and the same and shit. So, you know, we need that support. I got the merch, they got the merch. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes me mad time, effort, money to make this shit happen. You know what I'm saying? And we just need the support, man. Salute my nigga Seer. I see you, bro. OG, you heard? You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace, Seuss. Rest in peace, Spook. Rest in peace, Sense. Rest in peace, VE. Rest in peace, Kes 5, man. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace to all the fallen soldiers. Free my nigga Send. Free my nigga Scant. You heard? I don't know, man. Without further ado. Oh, wait, hold on. This Graph Champs is sponsored by motherfucking Nirvana Bomb Packs. Hold up. I gotta show y'all niggas the Nirvana Bomb Packs, bro. That weed. Y'all already know, man. When y'all see me smoking on Graph Champs, It's the Nirvana bomb packs, bro. This is what y'all niggas need to be smoking, bro. Go on the IG right there. You see it right there. Nirvana bomb packs. Shit is the best weed on the market, boy. That shit had me flying. You know what I'm saying? And shit, yo. So without no further ado, salute Kunta. I'm gonna bring. See if I get Ket in here. Y'all must accept your invite, Ket. M.T.K, man. That's crazy, bro. Salute, Ray. I see you. Yeah, I mean, the music. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Finally. Yo, do you hear me, Ket?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you so loud and clear, my brother. First, before anything, bro, I wanna salute you and thank you so much. I know you're a busy man, and thank you for making time for coming on Graph Champs. And the reason we want you on here is because, like I said, I'll say it to anybody. You're one of my childhood hero, superhero type niggas. You know what I'm saying? You're part of the super squad, and personally, you're a Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? So we love claiming you. You know what I'm saying? It's like chess. You're like y'all dudes are like the X-Men. You know what I'm saying? And you're one of them, bro. And we salute you, all the dedication and work, and what you're still doing for the art form today with the Museum of Graffiti, bro. We freaking salute you, Ket.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I'm glad to be here. Glad to connect.
Yo, bro, it's like it's surreal to even be talking to you, bro, because like, wow, all right, like what, 84, 85, Beach Street came out, and that's what turned me into a graffiti writer. Seeing Ramo do the train, hip hop don't stop, and spit ragging them and all that shit. That's what made me be like, damn, I want to do that. And I was about maybe 8 years old, you know what I'm saying? So I never, when I got old enough to finally try it, there was no more trains. You know what I mean? So you're one of them dudes that kept it so real to the train era, from rooftops, tunnels, trains, insides, everything, bro. So we just want to start from the beginning.
Right.
How did you even get into graffiti from the beginning, Ket?
For me, it was, growing up in the 80s, it was everywhere. Just like you mentioned, it was in the movies, like, on Beach Street and all that stuff, but really it was in our neighborhoods. So I grew up in Williamsburg, and in between Williamsburg and Bushwick, and so the streets were bombed, the trains were bombed, everywhere, everywhere. I spent a lot of time moving around the city, checking things out, and it was a very natural part of the environment, just like when you see New York today. You see it in certain neighborhoods, it's bombed. So I grew up lucky to live in a neighborhood that had a lot of writers, or that had a lot of writers before me. And then when I started moving around, going to school, taking the trains, all the trains were bombed. And so I got to see a lot of great history, a lot of great writers over the years, and it made me want to do it. The minute that I got the chance to jump into it and do it, I started doing it, and that was it.
Do, do you remember the first time like you really scratched
I,
that
I, re-
itch?
I remember all of it. I remember, being a young toy and writing in the staircases of my building. I grew up in the projects in Williamsburg, writing in the projects in my building, writing behind the building. I remember just being a kid, little kid, crossing the street, writing in my neighborhood, being fearful to take tags and not really knowing, because when I started writing, I didn't know any writers. I just decided to do it. And I didn't know the rules. I didn't know if it was safe, it was not safe, and I just started doing it. And, so I went from my block to the next block to the other blocks, getting out there, and growing, um, and and eventually leaving the neighborhood and then going to the trains. I think the first place that I wrote on the trains was in Canal Street. So the layups on the J line, and so, little by little I learned, and then I started meeting other writers, and I started meeting writers in school, but I started meeting writers in the tunnels. And so then I
Do
started painting with them.
so because all right, so you started in like the mid early 80s, right? Could you even paint a quick picture for the supporters, because the 80s was different. Like the streets, it was rough in the streets. Could you like paint a little picture for us?
Sure. So in my neighborhood, the neighborhood was filled with abandoned buildings. a lot of abandoned buildings everywhere. It wasn't the neighborhood that you see today, and so it was a mix of abandoned buildings that were burnt down due to what was going on in the 70s and the 80s with poverty and building owners abandoning their buildings and then burning them down for insurance money. So there was a lot of that. There was empty factories, abandoned lots everywhere, and so it was a bit of a wasteland, so to speak. And through the neighborhood, in some of those abandoned buildings, there were squatters, but the squatters were outlaws. They took over and they had their own clubhouses, and they just lived in these abandoned buildings. So there was a lot of bikers around my neighborhood, unknown, Arabian Nights. Um, who else was there? Man, I can't remember the names, but some of them are still there. And so there was a lot of, and so my neighborhood felt a bit wild because it really was wild. And then when you went to other neighborhoods were the same. At least the neighborhoods close to me, the Lower East Side, uh, the Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene. There was a lot of that going on. Dirty Ones, was around as well. And so a lot of the graffiti that I saw was their graffiti, a lot of gang graffiti. But then I saw a lot of old school graffiti because in my neighborhood they never cleaned the graffiti. It stood, so you'd see graffiti from the 70s. You see writers just from time. So walking around, you get a history lesson as to who came before you or who came through your neighborhood. And so all that stuff was going on. And at the same time, of course, it was dangerous. It was dangerous because, you know, police were out there, but kids were in the street. Crime was rampant. Drugs were a big deal. People were on heroin. There was just crime like you couldn't imagine in certain neighborhoods. 42nd Street wasn't Times Square. It was the Deuce. It was a dangerous place. There was pimps and prostitutes and drugs and everything. And so the city was dangerous. People wouldn't come to New York for tourism. Just wasn't a thing. It was a very dangerous time. Gangs everywhere. Even though the old school gangs were leaving, graffiti and the writers themselves at that time started becoming like gangs, and conducted themselves that way, whether it was crews like TVS, Uptown, or RTW as well. They conducted themselves that way, and so you had to really know how to navigate the city. You had to know, where to go, where not to go. You're by yourself, you end up at the last car at the train station. At the train, you're gonna have problems. You really have to know how to navigate, as a shorty to be able to survive, and of course, for myself, navigating it was about, getting into trouble, getting into fights, getting caught out there until you kind of learn the rules of the streets and how to conduct yourself and how to protect yourself and defend yourself. So these are the things that not only myself, but any young person at the time, mid 80s, early 80s, late 80s, you really had to know where you're going. You get off at the wrong stop of the train, you don't have any peoples there, you bump into another crew, you might have problems. And so that's kind of what it was like.
Yeah, I'm glad that you broke it down so vividly and shit because see, like my son, he just turned 14, and I be telling him these things. He take the train for the first time going to high school and all this, and I said, yo, back in the days, bro, that like just going outside, it was a fucking risk. You know what I'm saying? But then let alone taking the train. And I'm glad you said it. Playing the last call, like you had to be like this in the last call. You know what I'm saying? With your niggas or with your blade ready. You know what I'm saying? The last call. If niggas was chilling in the last call by choice, it was because they were about it. You know what I'm saying? They were ready for war. You know what I mean? And I remember the motorcycle gangs and all of that stuff too, bro. They used to roll around with some of the girls used to have like just a vest on, and you could see like their chest sometimes. My mom used to be like, "Oh, cover your
Yeah,
eyes,"
yeah, yeah.
stuff like that.
It
It was
was
so crazy. So, and
they had a
so
really
I'm
they had
glad
a
that you
really
say,
wild style, man. They had a style that was like warriors, right? They wore MC boots. They wore, their jeans were ripped at the bottom. They had chains. They walked around with chains, leather vests, Confederate hats sometimes. Just a very, very unorthodox and outlaw style. And so those are those are sort of the people, some of the writers that I got to know. Those were the first writers. They were on their way out. They really weren't doing that anymore. They were involved in other criminal activity, but they were part of the neighborhoods. They were big brothers, they were part of the neighborhood.
Do you remember the first writers that you linked up with?
The first writers that I linked up with were, man, I don't remember all the names, but it was people like Zeno, who later became my partner. This cat named True from Park Slope. And then the really first cats that I got down with were Riss and AOK. Those are the first dudes that I really got down with because they were hitting the lines heavy. AOK was from Manhattan. Riss was from the Bronx and Queens. And at the time, uh, you know, Ghost was painting heavy. Ven and Reese were painting heavy, and I kind of fell into both those crews, right? And then we all started painting together. So it was them, and then also SV Crew. SV Crew was which was from the Bronx, which was Cento and Cavs, and then later on COD Crew, which was Wayne and Wen and those cats. And so by the time I started really painting the trains consistently, I got down with, some really important crews, but really crews that were really painting a lot. In my neighborhood, the writers from Williamsburg weren't painting trains anymore. They were older, they had faded away, they weren't really doing that anymore. They were more concerned with the drug game. Crack was a big thing, so people were making money selling crack and selling heroin. It was a whole nother mindset. Same thing in Bushwick. Bushwick still had more active writers, but I sort of believe that when you have a neighborhood where you have layups in the neighborhood or you have train yards in the neighborhood, more riders stick around because there's a place to paint. My neighborhood didn't have layups in the neighborhood. We had to travel. I had to go to the Lower East Side. I had to go to Bushwick. I had to go to, you know, uh, deep East New York, other places to paint. And so neighborhoods that had spots like that, writers stuck around longer. But we started traveling around. I started traveling around painting everywhere, and the crew that I fell in with was really dedicated, man. These cats were really really dedicated to painting trains, and really making it their time. In New York, when you think of even now the history, every year who's really active, who's putting in work. And so when we started, we wanted to be those dudes. And so you put in work, and we were just about it, and it was our time.
Do you remember how you got your tag? How did you get the tag, Ket?
I got the tag. It wasn't my first tag. I got the tag just in school, in high school, sitting around with friends in the lunchroom. We had sort of like permanent lunchroom, and it was I sat at the tables that were all always MCs and writers, right? Those are the cats that I hung out with. And so the writers that I was hanging out with at the time, some of them were active. This cat that wrote AS from STM Crew, that wrote with Fib and those guys from that side of Brooklyn. Um, and we just kept throwing names out there. I kept, trying names, and the next week I would see it up somewhere, and I'd be like, that name is taken already. And so it was just sort of playing together with letters in the lunchroom, and some of the big writers at the time uh, were Bet from TFV Crew,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
Bet and Wade and Roaches and those guys. And then also Net, that wrote with Bones, also from Brooklyn. So I would see a lot of the ET names, Net and Bet and Set. And I thought, you know what, those cats are doing it. And they're really only on the insides, just tagging. And I thought, you know what, I'm down to be part of that ET crew and have a name like that. And that was it. I chose the letter K. I put the ET on it, uh, and that was it.
All right. So, boom, you come up with Ket. Now the throwy, because the throwy is you know, it's synonymous. It's legendary. The K with the kick on it. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
once we seen that shit once, you start seeing it, that shit is like engraved in your head, just like a ghost thrower. You
Yeah.
know? How did you? All right. So when you get KET, so what did you do? You started doing insides
When
first, because most trade writers that I interview, they say, oh yeah, I started with insides first. That was like the testing ground or whatever.
Sure. For me, I did that a little bit, but I ended up finding and painting along train tracks. All these train tracks around the city, and so I would go down there and practice piecing. Me and a bunch of my friends, SB1, who's from Network Crew, he was my writing partner in high school. Was one of my writing partners, and so we started painting in these train tracks, practicing piecing, trying to learn how to piece. And so I did some insides, nothing to brag about. Back then, the insides were so crushed that there was no room to even write your name. Like it was over. And so I immediately wanted to go on the outside. I wanted to go on the outside because at least on the outside the paint goes over the paint, right? You could buff someone, you could go over it, and it don't and you could do it. Ink doesn't cover ink. And so I started going on the outsides, and that was, pretty early on. I started painting with AOK and started doing outsides and pieces and throw ups. The cats that I wrote with, they loved doing throw ups. Ghost loved doing throw ups. Ven loved doing throw ups. Reese loved doing throw ups. J.A. loved doing throw ups. Smith and Sane loved doing throw ups, and so I had to fall in with those cats. RC, remote control, loved doing throw ups, and so I had to level up and get down with the program. And so I started with a funny little throw up, and then eventually it changed to the one that you're talking about, which had um, that classic K, that is, I guess, known forever. I always thought of it as a Brooklyn Queens K. It was just such a classic K. It had been done by so many writers for so long. KB from TSS from Queens is an example, and KN from TSS. This guy that wrote Ken from 357 Crew. He did that K. Deck, DEK from Bushwick, he did that K. Peak did that K. PG3, when he wrote Deke, he did that K. And so I grew up seeing those letters, growing up. Same thing with that lowercase a that some people like to do, that AR and AT used to do from Bushwick. And so, and before that it was KO, Dean, who really made that K what it is. And in when he used to write Kill Three. So now we're going back to the 70s. So that
Wait.
letter,
Who was it? Who was it that made the K famous? That with the kick? Who was it?
KO, KO,
KO. I gotta
KO,
look him up.
knockout, KO, who was an alias for Dean from 3YB or B, no, from BYB. So he's originally from Manhattan, and eventually he ended up moving to Queens, to Queensbridge. And so he went all city and made that K uh, famous. And before him, it was Intop, INTOP, who was one of the first kings of graffiti from bombing from throw ups. And his backup, his alias was Kill 3, KILL 3. And he had something like that, And so there was, it's a long history. So a lot of the styles that you see out there, people may or may not know where they come from, but there are sort of continuations, whether you're knowingly taking it, whether it's been passed down to you or not. And so I decided to bring it back and sort of resuscitate that K and push it, and add my spin to it, and and then yeah, and then after that, you see people like Scuff using it and doing it.
So in my generation, the late 80s, early 90s, the scuff generation, um, I grew up seeing that throw up. So when I think of that K, I think of just three people automatically. You're the first one. Boom. Then I think of KPWR. He had the sick fucking K throw up. That K is so fucking dope that he does. And of course, one of my personal favorites, KET M.T.K from Bushwick.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
those are the first three people that come to mind when I think of that K. You, KP, and KA. So when you said KO made it famous, that's why I love doing this show, because I learned history. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I listen. I remember KATKK very well and the way he did it. And then before that, of course, KP, who had him, all that crew had, and that time, and that side of Brooklyn and Queens, whether it was Bed-Stuy or East New York or Bushwick or Williamsburg, having a good throw up was very, very important. Having an original throw up really, really was a big deal. And everybody had style. It was a time where there was a lot of great style out there. So there was a lot to take in.
All right, so now boom, you got the throw up, you start getting your feet wet, doing the outsides, you're running with wrist. First of all, just falling in with wrist mob. Wow, man, I think that was a perfect, because when I think of writers like you, I think sometimes like what would, because you're not just famous for being with Wrist Mob, you're famous for being Ket also, for the throwy everything. You know what I'm saying? So you have your own separate identity. It's not like Ket Wrist Mob automatically. You know what I mean? You have your own lane. As all the Wrist Mob dudes do. Duel. We could talk about all of them
Yeah, yeah.
forever. To me, they're the most prolific graffiti crew, bro. That should give me
Well,
goosebumps. You could tell I'm a fan.
we had a great run. I mean, I think, we had a great run, late 80s, early 90s. We had a great run. I mean, our crew, Duel is having an incredible run right now. JA has had a run forever. I know I see a lot of haters in the chat there, whether you hate him or not, he's doing his thing, and he's still going. And so there's been members of our crew that are beyond lifers. They have they have careers. People, I see other people being mentioned there, but the dudes that are being shouted out in the chat, they're not around. They don't exist anymore, right? Their careers they're washed up. They're finished. And so members of my crew, just like members of some other crews, some people are lifers, and that's it. You can't take that away from them. So I was lucky and to be one of those dudes for for a while with my crew. But things change. People coming in and out of retirement. People come out, they go in. And it was for me. Growing up in New York at that time and painting for all those years. I fell in love with it for the writing, for the adventure. I fell in love with it because my crew was my family. When I was a young kid, and I left home and I got my own place, it was the crew house. Everybody lived there. Everybody, stuck around. My first roommates were writers, were members of my crew. I lived with Ghost as an example for years. And so what were we doing every day? We were painting. And so it was just a very natural thing to be so into graffiti, to live it, to breathe it, to do it. And like I mentioned, it was just our time. Our other crew members from other boroughs, like Cento or like Dual in Queens, they lived it and breathed it just as much. And so we always connected, and it was always, if it was Dual, it was about painting highways or streets. If it was Ghost, it was painting trains. If it was Ven, it was painting trains. And so if it was with the Bronx Cats, it was going up to paint the trains in the Bronx. And so it was a good time to be doing it. I mean, still, I mean, I talk about me and the time that I was doing it heavy like that. I love that people are still doing it like that now. I see trains online here every day. People doing whole cars, panels every day. And so I feel like New York still has it. People go to New York and grow up and paint New York, and the writers in New York, they're passionate about writing. I mean, and New York is not special for that. You go to Chicago, Chicago's crazy like that too. Philly's like is crazy like that too. So when you're a writer and you fall into it and you fall in love with it, you might not be able to shake it. You just keep doing it.
Did you ever I mean, I know you probably did because they were your crew member, but Sane and Smith, to me, those two names are so special. Like Ghost Ghost is that dude. When I was interviewing Scuff, me and Scuff, we grew up together basically. So we always, have the graffiti discussions. And, like my two favorite writers ever is I put Easy Jaws and Josh Five. I put them as a collective, because street bombers. That's what I am, a street bomber. But Ghost, he just covers all bases so well. The sick throwy, videograph, being able to see him and hear him, and like a fucking superhero, like Professor X out this motherfucker. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Um, did you feel pressure? Was it pressure like to paint with them? Like, oh, I gotta like fucking get on it like the way these dudes
It
is.
did I feel pressure? I definitely felt like I had to keep up, and they made it known like you could keep up or you could not keep up. You can't not keep up when you rocking with a unit like that. Early on in the beginning, when I was really young and a kid, it wasn't easy to keep up, especially when they're older than me. Ghost is older than me, so I'm in high school. He's got a full-time job. He's these cats are racking every day or doing what they're doing, and so it was hard. The hardest thing was to keep up with paint supply. No one paid for paint, and so being able to spend as much time racking as you possibly could to have materials. And if you're going bombing every night, it's a lot of racking you have to do to be able to keep up. So I've always felt the pressure on that tip. And and we had racking masters in the crew. Duel was a racking master, JA was a racking master, everybody, and so then, and so it was crazy. You got to, weekends were just spent racking. That was it, to be able to keep painting the whole time. Uh, and then as far as bombing, yeah, there was pressure to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to get invited. So you really got to learn, had to learn the ropes and do the right thing. But at the same time, even though that sort of pressure was kind of a competitive, pressure that exists, we all became friends. We were all crew. We were crew. We were all friends. And so we ended up, even if we're not painting, we're still hanging out. It was just a normal thing. So we always could figure out what to do. You're hanging out drinking, you're at the crib drinking, hanging out, whatever. Eventually, like, up, it's time to go paint. And then you figure out a mission. I was lucky also at the time living in the South Side, in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg. You can go outside my house any night and find a spot to paint just in the neighborhood. We painted so many handball courts, so many walls, so many like boxes or worker houses on the train tracks, like everywhere, because sometimes you just wanted to keep it light and you go paint a handball court in the middle of the night. You go paint a highway spot. And so it wasn't so much, it was about having fun, painting, having fun, and just living a graffiti lifestyle.
So when you was talking about the racking too, right? So now when I'm young and I'm exploring, going out of my area of Bushwick for the first time. So of course the first surrounding areas is South Side, Williamsburg, Bed-Stuy, Greenpoint. So those are all the first areas that what I mean. I explored. So I'm seeing the handball courts. You know what I'm saying? You had the fillings all over them, and I used to be hyped, like. But then I used to be like, it's the same thing you said. Like I had to have the supply of paint. I would have the time and be out there, but sometimes I wouldn't have the paint. You know what I mean? And it was really hard. It was really hard. Like, damn. So, because to be a graffiti writer and to keep up and to satisfy what you have inside that you want to express, it's a full-time fucking job, because you got to rack all day. You got to scheme out spots. You got to outwork the next person and stuff. And
Not
it's
easy, not easy at all. And I remember times where, back then at one point, Ghost worked at a paint factory. Ghost Ghost got a job and worked at a paint factory. So when he was able to do, dozens and dozens of whole cars, it was because he worked at a paint factory and stole all his paint from his job. Like, a week, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cans at a clip. So he had what it take to paint all those whole cars. I didn't work at a paint factory. So sometimes I would be at the layups doing my panel. These cats would be doing whole cars because all I had paint for was to do a panel. and then the rest of the time I'm holding them down. And it's just what it is. You got paint, you paint. You don't have paint, you don't paint.
Yup. I know that feeling, bro. Bombing wherever and Boppo and all of these niggas. If you run out of paint, you run out of paint because they're doing what they do, and they're not gonna. You might throw you a can here and there once in a while, but if that shit is not a habit, you better have paint. If now you, like you said, you're not getting invited.
That's it. I mean, it's funny that I see the little comment there from Sear. You even had to rack the caps. You have to rack
Yup.
fat, all that. There's nothing like today when you could just walk into a paint supply store and buy fat caps or skinny caps or whatever.
Yup.
It was, going shopping or not going shopping, going racking for caps, trying to figure out, which spots hadn't been hit because everybody was doing it. So you go into spots and they had already been hit and you can't get anything. So there was a lot of steps involved to um, to do that, to be able to be active, to be able to be out there. There was a lot that it took to do the thing.
All right. So now, boom. You fall in with the wrist mob. You're bombing. You're making a name. You're obviously influencing the next generation because at the time when you're doing your thing, niggas like me is coming up and we're looking at niggas like you like, wow, like I want to be like this guy right here. You know what I mean? Here comes Videograph. The first time the world gets to actually see these guys in action and everything. You're in Videograph, and I remember this was a joke between all my friends. Batty, batty, batty. Yeah, your mother got one eyebrow. She's batty, batty, batty. And so your part in Videograph, your interview is so freaking famous. Like people from my generation know your whole fucking interview like they know the Martin Luther King speech, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, oh, this is the shit, you know what I'm saying? The fucking streets is for toys, the trains is where it's at and everything, blah, blah, blah. Tell me about that when the Videograph came out.